Welcome. This is the Brattlecast, a podcast brought to you by the Brattle Bookshop in Boston. One of the most popular tourist spots, and rightfully so. The books are beautiful. They're old and new and everything in between. And it's the stories behind the books and stories behind the people who sell them and buy them and trade them and all that. And with me, of course, is the proprietor of the store, Kenneth Gloss. Ken and I do these podcasts, have a great time. And we thought we'd chat a little bit further about where we are right now in some of the activity beyond the retail side. One of the things that you do, and this makes so much sense, particularly in a real estate market that's tight, is you assist in the quote-unquote staging of houses. First of all, let's define what that means overall.
Well, one of the things that's happened since the pandemic and COVID and even before, we'd get a lot of calls from people. They were moving, but the real estate agent said, this is how we want the house to look when we invite people in. And my daughter, Emily, works in real estate, and she says to the point where the firms sometimes have warehouses with their own furniture, very plain furniture and pictures and so on. Because one of the things that they find, and again, talking to my daughter in particular, who's really doing well. Matter of fact, I might invite her to come on and do this one time with us.
Love that.
She could talk it from her end. But when you walk into a house, real estate people, my daughter mainly, but they don't want the person coming in to look at the house to see the person who's there. And I don't mean the person physically be there. They don't want to see the personality there.
The pictures.
The pictures. In other words, they want the prospective buyer to be able to picture them in the house.
Right.
They don't want to picture who was there. I went to yesterday I went to a house in Connecticut. They had 25,000 books in the house. One of the partners, his partner had died, and said that they went on buying trips together a lot of times, but his partner, first of all, he said the first one they came on was to the Brattle Bookshop. I don't know whether he was just trying to butter me up or whatever, but it could be. But he said he started doing this, and it just got out of control. He just, everywhere he went, he wanted to buy books. And so we went to their house, and one of the men died, and the other one is selling the house. And he said, well, one of the problems is the first person who came in to look, all they could look at and comment on was the prints he had on the wall and the books. They didn't really see the house. So many times when I'm going to people's to look at the things, they've had the real estate agent in, and the real estate agent says, this is how we want it to look. We want this, this, this. Clear all that out, get all this out. They'll do it for you. I mean, obviously, they charge fees. But they want the house to look very neutral. So if someone has 10 or 20,000 books, like I'm sure everybody has in their house, or even a few hundred, they want it to look a certain way. And sometimes that means leaving a few of the books, usually more picture books, coffee table,
right.
Very neutral in subject.
Yeah, subject matter. You don't want to put something that could in any way offend somebody or shock them So it sounds like you're doing more removal than you are doing addition.
Oh, absolutely. We do more removal, but what we've done in some cases is people will call us before their real estate agent comes or before they start selling the house, and they'll ask us to go through the house, because another thing, when you're inviting a lot of people into your house, if something's particularly valuable or fragile or whatever, valuable, you don't necessarily want it on the shelf because who knows whether it will be there when everybody leaves. And fragile, someone could just inadvertently pull a book off the shelf. If they dropped it and it was very valuable, it could really hurt the value. So that's one reason to have it out, but it's more the real estate agents are pushing. So if they call before the real estate agent comes in, a lot of times we'll even say to them, look, before we're very interested, we'll buy all of this, but talk to your real estate agent and make sure whether they want everything empty, whether they want a little bit of books on the shelves. If they do want books, what kind of books they want on the shelves. And if you have valuable books, well, I'll tell you what, we'll buy those now. We'll move them out. And when you've sold the house, we'll come back and get the rest. Or if it's a very good library, we'll buy it. And then we can go out to our dollar tables and fill it back in. And we've done that in a lot of houses too. So the books in the house are, $1, $3, $5. Who cares whether someone takes a book? But there's so much involved in the staging, in the moving, in the clutter. Or, again, not wanting your personality. They want, basically what they really want is all the walls painted white, a few empty things. But when you really think about it, that is what you want.
Yeah, I've been there and staged or had a house staged to move. It's almost a necessity right now if you're moving into somebody else's abode. And I'm fascinated by the idea that their attention can be drawn to a series of books on a bookshelf, and that can determine whether or not they're interested or not. Likely a turn-off more than a turn-on.
Well, it also is a distraction.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
A lot of times you'll go into businesses and so on, and they'll have books, but they're covered in one color, and you can't actually see what the spines are. They give that impression of education, literary feel, higher class, upper, but you actually can't see what the books are. And that's sort of that's about as neutral as you can get. But it's interesting. People ask us sometimes when the business is down in general, like in 2009 when we had the financial collapse, how does that affect us? What affects us more is the real estate market, because most of our buying is when people are moving from the, quote, the big house to the smaller, or an estate, there's always estates. But if the markets are off and people aren't moving, we're not getting the calls. And that actually is one of the main economic factors in the country that affects us more than almost any other, is how many houses are being bought and sold, how many people are moving, how many people are giving up the books to get to other people.
Might be interesting to ask this question, just rough estimate, percentage-wise, how much of your day is spent or how much of your business is dealing with estates and outside issues. I mean, the store is the store. It's doing remarkably well, but how much time do you have to devote?
Well, it's a very unusual day when we don't go to a house or an estate.
Interesting.
It's almost every day we're going out. And sometimes it's two if one's small and another one's small and they're somewhat close to each other. But it's almost every day that we're going out, and sometimes buying one very valuable book, sometimes buying a small collection. A lot of times my pickup truck can hold about 1,500 to 2,000 books. A lot of times just filling it all up, coming back, going back out. We did have one collection recently that sort of defied that a little. A man had a collection, and one of my managers went out, but it was a collection of miniature books, and literally miniature books, and that's a whole field, are under 2 inches. So you can get a really lot of those in the truck. They're much easier to move. I almost wish everybody would go to miniature books and.
Gulliver's Travels, right?
Gulliver's Travels.
You could call your truck the bookmobile, but maybe it's been done. I don't know.
Well, but the most fun part of the business too is going out to houses, estate, seeing the houses. I mean, a lot of people go to open houses just so they can be in a house and see what it looks like. I'm doing that almost every day. And most people who have libraries, who have collected books, are interesting people. Some you like better than others, but most of them are all very nice and interesting. So we get to see all of that ahead of time. And but then there's also the issue of you got to move the books. And we try to convince new employees that it's a really, really heavy, hard job. And until they've done it a couple of times, a lot of them don't realize what we're talking about. But that's the fun. But it all hinges on getting those books, because one of the most boring things in the world, of course, we've never had this, baby, is walking into a bookstore, used bookstore, and seeing the books, and then coming back 2 weeks later, and it's the same, and coming back 2 weeks after that, and it's still the same. That's not what you want. You want people to feel they have to come in every day.
Right.
You're putting new stock out. You're constantly filling the shelves. And the money is actually made when you buy it. In other words, sure, it might take a while to actually sell the books and get the money back. But once you've bought it, you know that that's eventually going to sell. So
it's a commodity that's valuable, and that you know there's an audience for it. You know, there's a market for it.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I do a lot of lecturing at libraries, museums, doing the podcast here. It's to keep our name out there, and keeping the name out there isn't as much having to do with getting people to come in and buy the books. It's so that when they're moving, or when their real estate person knows that someone's moving, they need the books, that they hear our name, because that's the most important part. But probably in the last 5 years, the number of people who say the real estate person wants this staged, or this getting a call from a real estate person, there's a whole industry of people who help other people move, getting calls from them. But there's whole industries of setting the house up, helping people get out, and hopefully we're on a lot of the lists.
There are people whose job it is to put artwork that's appropriate on walls, or to deal with plants and house plants and things, and all kinds of ancillary businesses have grown up. I'm thrilled that you're still hopping around with that truck of yours and getting a lot of business from
it. It is. But like I say, in the last few years, more than almost anything else, almost every single person we go to has the real estate person within their group. They have staging.
Long live the staging.
Well,
that's going on.
It serves a purpose.
It does.
They really help, and they really do help sell your house faster, quicker, and hopefully for a reasonable price. All
right, there he is, the man himself, Ken Gloss, proprietor of the Brattle Bookshop. And if you're not seeing him in the bookstore, he's on the road.
Or in a studio doing a podcast.
Or in the studio doing it. It's the only place you can catch him. Don't forget, you can go to the website, brattlebookshop.com. All kinds of wonderful, wonderful info and resources there as well. And continue to listen to the Brattlecast. Don't forget, subscribe. Be a regular subscriber, and you'll thank yourself for it. Until next time, take care. Ken, thank you.
Thank you.